Work-life balance is a bit of a misnomer. It's more like a work-life journey because it's never really accomplished. And I mentioned it's a polarity. It's something that needs to be managed all the time, but it's never really done. So friends is a whole other role that we play in how we want to stay connected to community. And then, of course, our community role is how we show up in community, whether it's at your church, the hockey rink, the curling club, the local state fair, whatever you're doing to be part of your community and how you're being a better neighbor. And one of the things that Lynn says is crucial for good transition is having strong self-worth and knowing your identity and knowing that your identity isn't just tied to being a farmer. Welcome to the Farm Family Harmony podcast. I'm Elaine Froese, Farm Family Coach, here with another episode full of transition tips, tactics, and sometimes hard truths to get harmony on your farm. Hi there, folks. Welcome to another edition of Farm Family Harmony podcast, and welcome to a new year. And I'm just so excited that you could join us on this podcast because I'm going to be talking today by myself about living an intentional life, work balance in a complex world. And I also like to just give a shout out at the beginning of the new year to Alison Weaver, who wrote this great journal called Navigate 2025. And who could believe it's been 25 years now since year 2000? And for those of you who remember Y2K. Anyway, back to Alison. She's available at alisonweaver.com, and she makes these beautiful guided journals that help us do planning for an entire year and also take care of our mental well-being and just keep ourselves organized. So if you'd like a Navigate journal for next year, go to alisonweaver.com. So, beginning of a new year, lots of people have lots of energy about making new decisions, but living an intentional life involves making choices. And many years ago, back in 2013, I was called Canada's Farm Whisperer by a fellow Andrew Douglas, who wrote an article in Faith Today magazine. But what I want you to capture in this podcast is that you have choices, and what kinds of choices are you going to make to live an intentional life? So I had a saying, your farm, your family, your choice. We have lots of choices we can make. The other thing to consider is that some of you are in what we call the doldrums and you have no sense of hope right now, looking into a new year, looking at how your life could be different on your farm or with your family. And the verse in Proverbs 13:15 says, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. So I want to give you some tips and ideas today on a practical way and how you can have a more meaningful, intentional life. And many of you also are familiar that we go through different seasons and our farm is always changing. And we don't understand sometimes why some things happen. But as farmers, we learn to manage risk. And we always get a choice to choose about what we can control and what we can't control. And I'd also like you to consider texting me sometime at 204-534-7466 because I'm coming to Kearney, Nebraska on February the 21st to speak about roles in intentional living for women in agriculture for their 40th anniversary conference. I'm also coming to Ohio and Illinois this year to the Illinois Young Farmers Conference on February 8th and to Women in Ag in Ohio at the end of March, around March 21st. So there's all kinds of reasons to get connected. And I'd really like to know how it's going for you as a young farmer, as a young parent, and whatever the situation finds you for the challenges that you have about living intentionally. Now, strong families celebrate, and many of you may have read the book called The 5 Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman. But he talks about the gift, people wanting gifts to be connected and show love. I'm a words of affirmation person. I also like meaningful touch. My husband is an acts of service guy. He likes to have people do things for him, not send him cards. And my son, who's our successor on our farm with his wife, our daughter-in-law, he would prefer to have quality time. But when Dr. Nikki Gerard did the research way back in the day in Saskatchewan with 12 years of following farm families and their resiliency, the ones who were strongest in being able to bounce back were the ones who were connected to community, communicated well, and that they could celebrate. So my curiosity for this year for you to live intentionally is, are you communicating your vision of what you want your life to look like on a personal side, but also what you want the farm life to look like going forward? And what we need in agriculture is a lot of mindset shifts. A lot of people think working all the time is a good thing, and workaholism is alive and well, unfortunately. Many folks that I speak to as young parents and the next generation want a life. They don't want to be working all the time, and they want to have time with their families. So there's this polarity in this dance of going back and forth between we need to work, but when do we get to play and renew? We need to plan, which is true, but when do we need to actually focus and execute and get things done? So my question this morning or today is, what are you looking forward to? And we can't let go of things that aren't working for us unless we have a direction to move forward to something that we're looking forward to. And work-life balance is a bit of a misnomer. It's more like a work-life journey because it's never really accomplished. And I mentioned it's a polarity. It's something that needs to be managed all the time, but it's never really done. So here's the key practical tip for you in this podcast. What are you doing to be intentional about your 6 key roles? And your first one is how you take care of yourself. This morning I woke up and I went, oh, Elaine, and you need a shower. Your hair is a disaster. And I'd forgotten how much pleasure there is just in even having time in the shower and taking time to take care of yourself physically. And then later today, I'll be getting on the treadmill because it's pretty cold outside. And when the wind's up, I'm not a big fan of walking down 2 miles or 4,000 steps to my corner for my 2-mile walk that I need to do to feel better and get my endorphins moving. But what are you doing to take care of yourself? And it's important to spend some time on your health and your physical well-being and your mental well-being. And for some of you, that might be just crawling into bed 20 minutes early after the kids are in bed so that you can have some time to read and just journal and have some quiet. Then the next role is as a couple, and some of you may be single listening to this, so who's your significant other, or who are the special people in your life that you want to stay connected to, whatever couple relationships means to you, and especially for those of you who are married or partnered, what are you doing to cherish and protect your marriage? 1 hour a week, Thursday night at the coffee table, just talking about the state of your union is one of the practical tips from the marriage course that's put on by Alpha that we've taken a couple of times. But in their communication section, they talk about blocking 1 hour a week just to deal with face-to-face, on the couch conversation about the state of your union and protecting and cherishing your marriage. And I spoke to a marriage therapist once and I said, how can you tell in the first 15 minutes how a couple is going to do? And she said, oh, Elaine, I can tell in the first 15 minutes if each of the partners has the other's back. And if you've got your spouse's back, you'll probably be okay, but you know you're going to go through some rough spots because that's just how life is, and we need to protect our marriage relationships. And then, of course, you have your family, whatever your family looks like. And what's a normal family? There is none. Normal is only a setting on your dishwasher. So normal to you may be different for another person, but your family, your nuclear family and your extended family, what do you want to do with the roles that you have? And maybe some of you are placed in a role that's new to you as caregiver now, and that's putting a lot of stress on you paying attention to your other roles. So think about what you want to do in the next 3 months. Patrick Lenciani, in his book, The Frantic Family, calls it your rallying cry. So with these 6 key roles, yourself, your couple, your family, what's your rallying cry for the next 3 months? And I remember specifically when my son was a teenager, he said, Mom, you need to teach me how to cook. And he's a great cook, and that's great. So sometimes you have to set time aside for some specific learning roles for your family as well. The next role, of course, is the farm, or if you're an advisor to listening to this, it's your work off the farm. Oh, and it may also be your off-farm job. Do you see how many hats you're carrying? And that's why you're tired at the end of the day. Because you're doing the best that you can in all of the responsibilities and roles that you're carrying, but you're tired and you have to figure out what needs to shift. And then your friendship role. And this is what we lost quite a bit of during the Great Pause. And I'm not sure that people have fully recovered or re-intentioned how they're going to connect in relationship. And Jenny Allen's written a book called Find Your People, which is a very good read because her thesis is if you want to have a friend, you got to be the one reaching out. And so my question for you on this podcast is, guys and women, who's your emotional support group beyond your family? Have you ever talked to your best friend from high school in the last 2 years? And a lot of men, especially that I have coached over the years, have said, Elaine, I've forgotten how to have fun. And young men have said, Elaine, I'd really like to be friends with my dad and do some fun things with him, but it's mostly only about work. So friends is a whole other role that we play in how we want to stay connected to community. And then, of course, our community role is how we show up in community, whether it's at your church, the hockey rink, the curling club, the local state fair, whatever you're doing to be part of your community and how you're being a better neighbor. So just in review, I want you to understand that these 6 key roles are fairly basic and don't change over time, but what attention and intentionality you spend in each one of them will be different. And one of the roles that I've been working on for years that I seem to really struggle with is always trying to lose weight and be in better shape and be in better fitness. And as I'm aging, it's even more important to stay mobile and flexible. And so these are things that you can't just let slide, folks. And your friends, you can't let slide either, because you need to also protect your mental well-being and be connected. So let's remember that self-care is not selfish, that we need to embrace more fun on our farms, and also just ask each other, what does fun look like to you? And for us, it might just be going tobogganing or making a big pile of snow. We've got good snow this year, baking big piles in the yard so the kids can have fun sliding. Might be going cross-country skiing. Might be having a potluck birthday party, just inviting a bunch of people over. You don't have to do all the work. Everybody shares the load by doing potluck. The other thing I'd like you to think about in your marriage time and your couple time is, are your values still aligned? Is what's your cherished belief, which is part of what you believe to be true and how you build the culture of your family and your farm. And we have a values cloud that you could ask for, or if you want to go deeper than that, we can even put you online with a $55 tool called the Values Indicator to find out truly what your key values are. And one of my highest values is intimacy and friendship. I want to be loved and have loving relationships. So I'm going to work on that. I also need challenge, which is why I'm a farm family coach and a professional speaker, because there's lots of challenges with that. But while I'm out working off farm, the rest of my family who values teamwork is working on farm. So different is not wrong, but it helps if you know what those differences are. So is your farm fun? Can you take a day off? Can you block some time to go to the lake and go cross-country skiing in the winter, or take your employees for a lake day during the summer? Can you build a bonfire? Can you just do some geo-coaching? Can you have picnics? Can you go for a hike? Or can you have a drop-in visit? And is change an opportunity or more like a threat? And so we have to figure out how our mindset is shifting. And are you seeing change as something that needs to be avoided? And other people will say change is inevitable, growth is optional. So the rules are definitely changing, and hard work doesn't guarantee success anymore. And our lives include a lot of surprises, and there's increasing complexity, especially in agriculture. And many of you might be looking at your numbers right now and thinking, oh man, this is not the way we thought it would be at the beginning of the year. And things change, but what are you doing over the things that you can pay attention to and you can control? So how about one of your goals for this year to be financial transparency? And I speak a lot about fairness and finding fairness in farm transition. And this is the year to start opening up the books to the greater business partnership on your farm team and really helping everybody get some financial literacy on that complexity that's changing over and over. And the future is just not predictable. And hard work, just work hard and this will all be yours some days, is not really the linear rule that's true anymore. It's more like a spiral. And success and security and progress, the things you're looking for, especially as a young farmer, have to come through a lot of communication and also figuring out where you are in the cycle of renewal. So at the Hudson Institute of Santa Barbara, where I was trained as an executive leadership coach way back in 2003, we learned about different stages in the cycle of renewal. Some of you are fully aligned and going for it, and that's great. But some of you, as I mentioned at the beginning, are not in that period of stability. So if you are in go for it, you're purposeful, you're focused, you're living the intentional life, you got lots of energy, you're optimistic, you're committed, you're accomplishing all kinds of things. And essentially what you need to do now at this part at the beginning of the year is identify what's your dream for 2025? What's your plan? And how are you going to sustain that by staying healthy? So when you're in go for it, you can do things like traveling and career training, maybe join a peer networking group. Think about what's fun to do in your free time and really manage your time well. And quite frankly, folks, the way I manage my time the best is blocking everything in Google Calendar and making sure that I don't book appointments on Friday. Grandchild time is important for me, so grandma's got to be available on Wednesday afternoons at 3:00, and that time is blocked. So whatever you're trying to accomplish and focus, even if it's 25 minutes, that's called a pomodoro in Italian, which is tomato, which is what their kitchen timers look like. Apparently, when I was in Italy, I did not see any tomato looking kitchen timers, but the concept is you can get a lot focused and executed in 25 minutes. So time management is part of that, part of the cycle. But some of you, as I mentioned in the beginning, your hope is not there. You're disenchanted, you're feeling trapped, you're angry because you're either hurt, you're afraid, or you're frustrated, you're anxious, you're feeling defeated. And this is the time now intentionally where you need to think about, what is my mini transition? How do I shift this? And so you need to be proactive and you need to say, this is working, this is not working. So sorting out your strengths and weaknesses, looking at opportunities, and I would say also looking at a learning plan. How do you need to learn things to overcome your negativity? And have you been to the doctor? Maybe you have a low-grade depression or circumstantial depression or seasonal affective disorder. There's 7 different kinds of depression. So the mini transition requires that you create an exit plan out of being hopeless. And that might involve coaching. And for some of you at a deeper level may need therapy and seeking out a counselor. And you can go to the National Farmers Mental Health Alliance in Canada.ca. So it's National Farmers, NFMHA.ca, the National Farmers Mental Health Alliance, and find an ag-informed therapist. Or you can also go to betterhelp.com, which I've heard is a really good therapy group that works on Zoom. And I mentioned going to the doctor, so put that in your calendar, get that done. Maybe some of you need to take a leave of absence, especially if you're heavy into caregiving and you need more support or you need a break. Time with friends, make the call, pick up the phone and use it as a phone, not just only for texting. And maybe some new learning and some new courses. So when you're doing this transition, this mini transition out of being disengaged, trapped, or stuck, you need to ask yourself 4 important questions. What do you want to hold on to? What's important to stay the same? Well, I want to hold on to my marriage. Okay, that's a good idea. What are you going to do? What do you need to let go of? You need to let go of anxiety. You need to let go of fear, and you need to let go of the pain of not knowing. So how are you going to take on knowing things? And I would suggest also reading Marilee Adams' book, Change Your Questions, Change Your Life, so that you can move on. And how you're going to do this is you're going to fix things that aren't working. You're going to renew what your plan is for going forward. And you're actually going to start doing some strategic planning to get on with your life, but you have to take action. But some of you aren't ready to take action because you need to go deeper with some healing and some inner work. And we call that cocooning, which in the culture in North America is not popular. What's up with Elaine? Why isn't she coming to the hockey rink anymore? Why did she stop curling? Why is she not coming to church? So cocooning happens when people withdraw for some introspection and meditative and exploring and reconstructing of their life and coming to terms with themselves. And I've had clients do this, especially member one who had suffered a lot from post-traumatic stress disorder. And she went to a special retreat and counseling series to really get a jump start on turning things around and getting inner healing. And you'll say, well, maybe that means spending time alone. And for young moms and young parents, that's not possible very much unless you can barter for time. And when I was a young mom, I had Stephen on Tuesdays and my friend had my son Ian with Stephen on Thursdays. And we actually bartered time back and forth so that we could have a block of time to develop and nurture some things ourselves. So if you're cocooning, this is a growing me kind of time. It's a time for spiritual renewal. Maybe you want to book Emily Russell's Ascend retreat and spend time with some other fantastic women in ag to journal and help each other. Maybe you want to sign up for a Women in Agricultural conference, but you're looking for a new sense of purpose. You're also looking for new friends. And in some ways, you may also want to take a bit of a sabbatical. Okay, so you've done some work on yourself. Now you're getting ready for something new. And this is exactly what happened to me in 2003 when I realized that coaching was going to be a thing. And I really thought that agriculture needed facilitated professional coaching and mediation that was conflict aware to help farm families deal with getting to the table and have the tools for talking about tough conversations, which I've coined discuss the undiscussable. So my getting ready phase looked like going to 22 days of training for conflict and mediation and spending 4 times in Santa Barbara, California to get my coaching certificate and to do long distance learning. So what are you getting ready for? What are you able to take risks around? Is there a new job opportunity? Do you want to do more reading? Do you want to declutter your house and simplify your lifestyle? Do you want to actually block in some fun time for your family? Do you want to revisit things you like to do, like music, art, and drama when you were younger? Do you want to travel and take some ag tours or some elder tours? Do you want to fall in love again? Here's a side note. There's a great series on Netflix called Later Daters that my girlfriend, who's single and my age, told me about. And it's quite interesting, but mostly I like watching what the coach says. So falling in love again and being intentional about building intimate relationships, or maybe taking a class. So getting ready is exploring, experimenting, excuse me, and training and doing all kinds of things that are going to give you, a stronger sense of purpose and define your self-worth. And there's an interesting podcast with Amy Hughes when she interviews Lynn Sykes, who is very well known in Australia for all her great work that she did in succession planning and especially facilitation. And one of the things that Lynn says is crucial for good transition is having strong self-worth and knowing your identity and knowing that your identity isn't just tied to being a farmer. So this predictable cycle of renewal is how you live an intentional life. If you're in phase 1, which is you're aligned, you've got lots of energy, you're going for it, good for you. Your life looks really good right now. But if you've come to a breaking point and you're feeling like you're trapped or disengaged or you've lost hope and your hope is deferred, then you need to get out of those doldrums and you may need to go even further internally to do some self-work, such as cocooning, before you can start getting ready again to do other things. So if you want clarity of expectations, certainty of agreements and timelines, and a commitment to act in your succession plan, you need to take this opportunity to listen to this podcast to think about what is your vision for 2025. How are you going to come to the table to discuss the undiscussable? What does success look like to you this year? How do you want to resolve conflicts and get some better conflict language? And we can also help you out with that with our conflict dynamic profile. And how can you and your family embrace shared values? So I'd like to leave you with this question. What gives you energy? What energizes you? And for me, in the families I work with, it's knowing what the future looks like, because they put plans into place with written agreements that secures their certainty of equity and gives them a sense of purpose and legacy. It's how they empower family by not making assumptions anymore and finding harmony through understanding. So what can you do this year as part of your role of being in the family, being in the farm team, to show appreciation and work to build trust? Are you going to make the call to the counselor to work on cherishing your marriage more, or possibly work through your depression and anxiety and sense of overwhelm that you just can't seem to shake off on your own? Are you going to make the call to connect with a friend? Are you going to make the call to take some new lessons in learning how to do something? Or are you going to have a date night? And the caring list is something else that you can do where you take a blank piece of paper and number 1 to 12 all the way down the paper. And you do the same thing for your spouse and hand her the paper. You take your paper and you write down the 12 ways that you feel cared for and what you appreciate about your spouse. And then you share it. And that'll be a great agenda for your first coffee that you have Thursday night for an hour. Make sure, as you're thinking about an intentional life, what do you want? And we have a PDF called What Do You Want that you can also ask for me. What do you really, really want? Because if you're going to be renewing and intentional in 2025 and beyond, you need to be aligned to your values. You need to know what you believe to be true in your culture so that your behavior towards each other is positive and you're making decisions well together. It's what you believe, behave, decide. And you've heard me speak about culture beats strategy before. You also need to take leadership. You need to show up as a leader for the roles that you perform in the family and the roles that you perform on your farm. You also cannot do it all and have it all and be all. Balance is not the right word. It's more like a buoyancy of navigating that the polarity of being self-pacing and saying, no, 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 no. Practice that. No, 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 no. Practice saying no, not at this time. But I'd like to help you find someone for that spot, so I would suggest this person. You also need to know that being quiet is not wrong. Having solitude is a great thing. And I spend every morning at least 20 minutes in my quiet chair with my Lectio 365 app, which I highly recommend for those of you who are Jesus followers, and just figuring out how to get quiet in your day and see what the most important thing is for you in the day ahead. Many farmers love to spend time with their cows and be outside and walk the bush line and check the pastures and do all kinds of things. But have you looked up to really stop lately and appreciate the sky, the wind on your face, and the amazing, beautiful seasons that you get to live in? Are you going to be adaptive to change? Are you going to be a lifelong learner like I am and always be in training to learn new things to help your life flourish? And are you going to look forward to the future? Because the past is the past. That was then. This is now. Thank you so much for joining me today on Farm Family Harmony Podcast. Living an intentional life is something I've been speaking on for over 30 years. And I'm still learning, just like you are. Please reach out to us at farmfamilycoach.com. Please share this podcast far and wide. I'd like to give a shout out to Sally Murfitt in Tasmania, Ben Law in Australia, Amy Hughes in the UK, Beth Alexander in Scotland, and all the people across the world that are being encouraged in agriculture because they too want to have harmony through understanding. And we want to see a huge mindset shift in agriculture so that we all can have the life we've always wanted. See you next time. Bye for now.